Hi there, Andrew Koleda, Operations Manager from On Demand HR. I'm joined today by Clint Indrele, Managing Director. 2021 has been a very reactive year for a lot of businesses with a lot of new and unique challenges presented. Most of the businesses within our network have been focused on simply navigating through. But today we want to help you to lift up your eyes and discuss some of the key topics that we think that 2022 will present. So welcome, Clint.
Good morning, Andrew. How are you going?
Yeah, good. Yourself?
Very well, thanks. Good to be here.
So in New South Wales, we've seen numerous Supreme Court cases challenging the health orders, but also challenging the vaccine mandates in industries such as health and aged care. We've also seen at times other industries targeted by vaccine mandates, such as the construction industry, which were later relaxed and reversed. We've seen businesses go above and beyond the health orders on their own by implementing their own vaccine mandates for their business and also impacting their contractors and employees. We've also begun to hear some debate around booster shots being required. So for businesses that are considering mandatory vaccinations, not mandatory vaccinations, what to do, what should they take into consideration?
Look, as you alluded to, this is a very difficult topic, and I think that what I would say is I think the business conditions are already difficult enough for businesses without having to make their own lives even harder in this regard. And we are talking about a labour market that's incredibly tight at the moment. I think 2022 will be probably the most competition that we've seen for people in years. And I think that any practice, whether it's mandatory vaccination or anything, that restricts the talent pool, even if it's only by a few percent, I think ultimately has an impact on the ability for that organisation to properly fill its roles and so on and so forth. So I think that's I think there's a real issue there around how that plays in practice. Of course, obviously there's going to be some industries that are going to have government legislating and having those orders in those industries, but we're still not clear on whether those things will be ongoing by order of government or whether they'll be ongoing by order of individual business. That will be an interesting thing to see in 2022. But I would say that overall, the government has picked some industries. They've decided in those industries that they require vaccine mandates for now. And again, I would just simply say to business that if they're even considering this path, that I wouldn't be expecting that necessarily everyone is going to comply. And if that occurs, and as I said, even if it is only a handful of percent or a more substantial percentage, what impact that's going to have on your ability in the labour market, and the people that not only you propose to keep from your current staff, but also when you go to market, effectively that will be a condition of what you're seeking, and that's going to restrict who you're going to be able to employ.
So we've had a lot of conversations between ourselves around, I guess, the possibility of businesses making permanent decisions against temporary health conditions. Do you think that there's going to be, well, two things. Do you think there's going to be a bit of a trend over 2022 of some businesses reversing their decisions around mandatory vaccinations, particularly when things like booster shots come into effect, which is probably only a couple of months away from the people that got vaccinated early? And do you think it's going to be a challenging thing for a business to do? Are they going to have to struggle between the ideology of I'm a mandatory vaccination business versus the practical implications when COVID becomes less and less, hopefully, of an issue for us as a broader community?
Well, look, without getting into kind of any of the medical side of this at all, because obviously it's a highly contentious area, I think that inevitably, with every new requirement, there will be less compliance. So hypothetically, let's say that the New South Wales figure is 90% of eligible, I believe, so it doesn't even count ineligible people, but 90% of eligibles. How many of that 90% are going to get the booster? Is it going to be 80% of the 90%? And then how many are going to get the next booster. And I think what we're going to see is that with every booster, I think there'll be less and less. It's certainly not going to be more. I think it's going to be less and less. So ultimately, the longer that sort of policy stays in place, I think it will be more challenging as time goes on. I think some businesses will simply say, 2 is enough. We're satisfied with that. Some may go to 3. Some may go to 4. But I think that it's also going to depend on the employer and how they're positioned in the market. I think that if that employer is paying high wages and can demand a lot relative to that particular role, sure, they might be able to say, create whatever conditions they like around those sorts of things. But for those employers who perhaps aren't paying well above market rates or are paying just market rates, if the choice is there between, I've had my 2 shots, not real keen on getting a third one, versus I can get another job where it's not required. I think those sorts of decisions are going to start coming into play for employees, and that probably applies to other things we'll probably talk about today around work from home as well, because I think there's going to be a contest in what arrangements employers put in place. But the theme I'm getting at is that the more conditions that are placed on employees, the less choices they have, whether it's vaccines, work from home, those sorts of things. Ultimately, I think it becomes a supply and demand issue. The more requirements you have, the less supply of people that can meet those requirements, which effectively means you'll have to pay more to maintain those set of requirements.
Last one on workplace vaccinations. One thing that has been playing around in my mind as you were speaking is we've had some conversations in the past around your thoughts that to some degree, at the very least as a supplement to vaccinations to protect workplaces, in many ways, rapid antigen testing is potentially a better way in order to protect your workplace and your employees from having shutdowns or potentially catching the virus. Now that rapid antigen testing is available in places like Coles and Woolies, do you think that that's going to be more prevalent in 2022?
It could be. It depends how serious businesses are in managing these issues. I mean, what I would say is that I think there is a reasonable argument that regular testing is actually a better risk management tool than mandatory vaccinations, because mandatory vaccinations, you're only doing it kind of once, and as you know, obviously the virus can transmit. With vaccinated people, as you know, we've had clients that have had shutdowns with employees that have been vaccinated and have contracted COVID. So it really comes down to whether that is a better measure to manage the issue. And I think we're just going to see that either that's something that businesses will decide that they want to do additionally, or they've just decided, well, we're taking this position, we're going to manage it we're going to manage it just as we go along. So, and look, we'll see probably more case law, I think, as well in the future. I mean, I think, look, Deputy President Lyndall Dean made a very good point, I think, around this regular testing being a better control measure. And I would have to agree with that observation, because inevitably, that's something you might be able to measure on a weekly basis, potentially, if you're wanting to do it that often. Whereas, with vaccination, it's done, and then effectively it's done in another 6 months. So there's not really anything in between. Obviously, it depends on the size of the workforce as well. I mean, in small workforces, it may not be viable for those sort of things to happen. But larger ones, where there's high traffic, maybe those things will be more viable. Will the responsibility be passed on to employees to do their own testing at home? Those sort of things. What sort of control measures will be expected? I think that's probably too early to tell, and it probably feeds into what we sort of said earlier about, again, the health minister and what powers they might have to direct certain things to happen. Be interesting to see what position kind of Safe Work takes on these things as well. So a lot there to unpack. Obviously hard to give any real clear answers, but those are certainly some of the thoughts I would say for next year.
Yeah, I think summing it up in terms of 2021 with COVID and workplaces, it was again very reactionary. It's like, what's this thing? What do we do tomorrow?
Yeah.
I think 2022 is going to be a little bit more of strategic thinking. Well, it should be hopefully for businesses, and how are we going to manage this long term and start thinking about something a little bit more practical rather than, my goodness, am I going to get a case in my workplace tomorrow? It's set the process, put the strategy in place, how it's going to be managed within your workplace, and then move on.
Look, I think the language of the government also has to change. I think the fear isn't helping. I think the fear is driving a lot of problems, even in workplaces. I think it's hesitancy with people coming back to offices. It's hesitancy with people going out, doing things, working in, perhaps sort of dense or more places of work where there's more interaction with people. So I think that language, I really would have hoped that would have changed a lot earlier, and it hasn't really happened yet. So I think that if the government's serious about getting the economy running, it's going to have to start changing some of this language. There's not really much point in continuing with the fear narrative anymore, because the compliance that they've sought from the public has been met, so to speak. So I'm not sure what the point is of continuing that fear up. It really needs to shift at this point, and the government either needs to say, well, that basically it is safe to start going back to work, to doing these sorts of things. I think we can manage it. The health system hasn't been overwhelmed in this whole time. That's been one of the fears in the last 2 years, that the health system would be overwhelmed. So the health system hasn't been overwhelmed. So I think it's reasonable for the political class to start changing the language, and in order to get the economy moving again.
I think the onus needs to go back to business owners or leaders or managers within their own sphere of influence, if you like. I don't think that we can, in terms of business and employment and workplace relations, I don't think we can be completely reliant on, state or federal government to take the leadership of that. I think the ball's got to fall with the leaders within the business in order to provide direction to the business, the staff, moving forward.
Well, I think the business community also needs to say enough is enough. I think that we just saw something. I saw something encouraging the other day from, I think it was AI Group, who actually have said, there was a discussion about the extension of the emergency powers. I think AI Group said that, look, enough is enough. We need to get on with things, and we need to see more of that, quite frankly, from the business community. I would be probably a little critical in 2021 that the business community has probably been a little weak in terms of its opposition to the mandates. I mean, we've had in Australia at large some of almost the most extreme mandates that we've seen across the world, and obviously there's been absolute carnage for some businesses. So we cannot possibly have a 2022 like a 2021, and if we go down that path, then a lot of businesses will fail. I'm certainly familiar with a number of businesses that were sent under by the very first lockdown. Businesses, for example, in the catering industry has been an absolute shocker in terms of that's almost the worst type of business to be running in a COVID environment, people not going back to offices and so on. So, I've seen businesses go under after the first round. You've seen businesses go under after the second round, and I'd hate to see more businesses go under after some sort of third round of restrictions or something like that. So hopefully the business community can stand up for itself a little better in 2022, and it's going to take some of these major employer organisations to do that.
Thanks very much, Clint, for your time today to offer these insights and thoughts for our members, associate members and guests. For anyone that's watching that's not already a member, why should they consider reaching out to On Demand HR to discuss their HR and workplace relations affairs?
Look, On Demand HR, we've been around for quite a long time now. We've worked with a significant number of businesses over that time. We have refined our offering. We plan to work with a much smaller number of clients going forward on a very close, intimate basis. All of our membership arrangements that we offer clients are unlimited, and the reason that we offer them on an unlimited basis is so that we can be helping clients with issues as soon as they arise. We don't want to be just dealing with problems when they've escalated to a point where we can only have very limited influence on the result. We want to help a client achieve their best commercial outcomes as early as possible, and the best way to do that is through, as I said, an unlimited advice arrangement. So that's something that we've offered to our clients this year and has been very well received. The other things that we offer to our clients is obviously representation in various different employment tribunals, representation on workers' compensation claims, and our recruitment services as well, where we offer a very unique campaigning service, which I think will be the recruitment method of the future, getting away from the recruitment agent model where it's just placements for fees. What we offer in that regard is company branded recruitment campaigns managed outside by us as an alternative to your traditional recruitment models. So those are some of the things that certainly businesses should consider in why they might want to become a on-demand HR member.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Clint, and all that's watching. We wish you all well in closing out what has been, no doubt, a challenging 2021. For those of you that can take a break, use the time to recharge and plan for what will no doubt be a challenging yet exciting 2022. So Merry Christmas, Happy New Year from all of the team here at On Demand HR.
Merry Christmas, everyone. Thank you.